address you heard of the 7 principles being mentioned. My lecture today is upon the 7 principles. In the year 1783, a very enterprising Scotsman
That's him.
who was an industrialist and banker completed the first of 4 cotton mills designed and constructed by a very famous engineer of the time, Richard Arkwright, who invented the cotton spinning machine that revolutionized the industry. These mills were built upon the sides of the River Clyde at the waterfalls of the village of Leonard, about 30 miles south of Glasgow, for all those who are not Scots. The destiny of these mills would not be reached until a man by the name of Robert Owen arrived on the scene to take over the ownership and manage it. Michael Owen was born in the year 1771 in the small community of Newtown in Monmouthshire, Wales, in the UK. He was the 6th child of a family of 7 children and was the youngest son. But at a very young age, it was witnessed that he had a brilliant mind. He was an avid reader, and at the age of 6, when he started school, he was so far in advance of all the other children, he helped the teachers with their lessons. At the age of 10, he left home with his eldest brother, William, for London to make their fortune. When he arrived there, he gained a position as an apprentice in the north of England, in Lincolnshire, with a firm that manufactured linen. And in 1787, when he completed his apprenticeship there, he gained a job with a Mr. Satterfield. Mr. Satterfield was a wholesale merchant of drapery and millinery. And he stayed with Mr. Satterfield until 1792, when he was offered a job as a manager of a cotton mill owned by a Mr. Peter Drinkwater. Mr. Drinkwater was a very large mill owner. I mean, not as a man, but as many mills he owned. This mill that Robert Owen took over was not running very efficiently, and he turned the ability of this mill around, made it very profitable through ingenious manufacturing methods, by strict stock keeping and the bookkeeping. He built up a very wide reputation for very high quality muslins and linens, so much so that Mr. Drinkwater promised him a partnership. A partnership that didn't materialise because Mr. Drinkwater's daughter got married and the new son-in-law got the partnership. So for all you young guys out there, it always pays to marry the boss's daughter. He was so distraught and heartbroken, he left the company and started his own company called the Chorlton Twist Company, which is a cordage company. They made rope. They made rope out of hemp. But all you guys don't get carried away with the rope part or the hemp part. On his travels, because he built up a very large business, he became acquainted with a young lady by the name of Caroline Dale. And it was through her that he learned that David Dale, her father, was interested in selling his cotton mills. And he was interested in purchasing it. So he done two things. He married the daughter and then bought the business. So he learned a quick lesson. At a time when mill owners in Great Britain were very cruel to their workers, he had a different idea. He was very kind to them. He offered them fair wages. He offered them good homes. He offered them sanitation and running water, which was unheard of at that time. He opened up a nursery school to allow the women workers to have their children looked after, and this school eventually turned into a school for all his workers, adults and juniors. He opened up a factory store, enabling his workers greater purchasing power from their wages. And the profits of that store funded their medical needs. So they had free medical services. He became known as the father of the co-op, but he done more. It was a horrifying experience for the rest of the industry. For he raised the starting age of children from the 6 years of age to 10. And mill owners at the time thought their world had come to an end. But Robert Owen had a theory. He said, if society was to grow, and if the economy was to grow, the worker required fair wages, good housing, and an education. And he done all of these. He opened up different classes, clubs, where they were able to, in their recreation time, either if they were interested in music or reading, theatre, they had all these societies open to them. He'd done another terrible thing. He prohibited drinking on the job. And through clever, ingenious methods of production, the mill became very widely known, and production exceeded everyone's expectations. At the height of its production, they employed some 2,500 people. 500 were children, but all were cared for. He became, and his name is in the dictionary as a social reformer, he became widely known as a social reformer, and he was the man who now we know as common as the Employment Service. Robert Owen opened the first employment office, the first in the world. So he had a grand view of society and what their needs were.